So we have covered 3 of the 4 major phases of processing a crime scene. The arriving at the scene, which is the first responders, and then the detective shows up, the preliminary documentation and evaluation, the detective is in charge. Do we need a search warrant? Then we show up, we get our walkthrough, we decide what we're going to do. The 3rd phase is we process the scene. And then the 4th phase, which we're going to cover right now, is completing and recording the crime scene investigation. We're going to establish a crime scene debriefing team. We're going to perform a final survey of the crime scene, and then we're going to do our final documentation of the crime scene. So let's cover each one of those briefly. First, we're going to establish a crime scene debriefing team. Well, this team really is all of us who were involved with the crime scene that are there. We're going to all get together, should be the investigator who's the lead on this, and all of the CSIs, and we're going to talk among ourselves. We're going to discuss, have we covered everything? What have we done up to this point? And what needs to be done now? And so we're going to talk it all over and make sure no one's missed anything. Sometimes what happens is you and I are working together, and I'm pretty sure you're going to do something, so I don't even mention it. But for some reason, you think I'm going to do that, and it doesn't get done. So when we do this debriefing, we go over our notes, and we ask each other what we did, and we make sure that we've got it all covered. We're going to discuss what evidence was collected, any preliminary scene findings, what our theories are, and so forth. We're going to also talk about what needs to be done. I mentioned that. Things like forensic testing and anybody else that needs to get involved from this point on. So the crime scene debriefing is the best opportunity for us and others who are involved to ensure that the crime scene investigation is complete. Then we're also, once we do that, going to perform a final survey of the crime scene. So this means we're going to walk through the scene a final time and make sure we're satisfied with what we have done. And part of that is to make sure that we haven't left any of our equipment behind and just see if everything's been handled. And one more thing to consider, but sometimes people make false claims about us and our work. It's not unusual to actually do a crime scene and then later have someone claim that you took something from the scene that you should not have, or that you damaged things that you did not damage. Now, sometimes we have to damage things in the process. I have a bullet hole in a wall. The only way to get the bullet out is to dig it out. I'm going to damage the wall. That can happen. It's evidence, so we do it. Now, what you want to do is hopefully you have the owner nearby and you say, hey, I just want to let you know I've got to dig a bullet out of the wall. And I'm really sorry, but you're going to have someone patch that up. I'll do my best to minimize how much damage. And you know what will happen? People will accept that, especially if you explain it to them. But if they walk in and there's all kinds of destruction, they're going to wonder what really happened. So communication is really important. When you're doing this final survey, it might not hurt to take a few photographs to show how you left the scene. And you make sure that's clear that these are just photographs of the scene as we left. And then you have those as part of your case file. And if someone claims something outrageous, you've got it. Or maybe do a quick videotape, walk through with the video camera or your digital camera on video and just show the inside. Then the documentation of the scene is the last part of this phase. And that's where we're going to make sure that we write everything down, fill out our reports, that other people that have to submit reports, supplemental reports to your case have all done their work as well. Now, normally that's going to be the investigator who ensures that everybody gets that done. But just so we know some of the things that will be in a case file, here's a list. Initial responding officers documentation. So those initial responders, they write a report. somebody's going to actually write a face page, they call it. That's the front page, and it gives the basic information. It may be the detective that does that. Often it's the first responder who got there and fills out that part, and then everybody attaches to it. Every officer who did anything significant should fill out a report to attach to the case. What can happen, though, is let's say 2 officers respond. One officer could write a supplemental report that includes what both officers did. But if the other officer did anything really significant, that really should be a separate report. Emergency medical personnel documents, the entry-exit documentation, that entry log that we saw last time, that goes in the report. All your photographs, any videos, those become part of the case file. Crime scene sketches and diagrams, and then evidence documentation, other responders. If you have a consent to search form or a search warrant, that's part of the case. And then reports from everybody involved, yours, all the crime lab people, when they do things, those all get attached when they become available. So there you have it. We have 4 major phases: arriving at the scene, preliminary documentation and evaluation. That's when we show up near the end of that or during that. Processing the scene, that's all us. And then completing and recording the crime scene investigation.